6.7 Cummins doing the oil pan gasket. You're gonna have to lift the motor up. So you're gonna start out, go ahead and take your air box lid and loosen that. That way it can lift up. Take your oil filter off, or your crankcase breather off. That way you have enough room to lift up. And the fan shroud, just remove the bolts, lay it back here. That should give you enough play to raise the motor up. Also, go ahead and take out that nut on for the dipstick tube here, and get that dipstick tube off there. You want this dipstick tube to push down. As you can see, it's up against there right now, and lift up the motor. Now on the bottom, undo the exhaust V-band clamp at the turbo. These two bolts here, these are 9/16, not 14. Some of the 14s will fit, but it's really 9/16. So you have to use your flex head Black Hawk to get that one out. And then this is a tool we made for the 6.7 Cummins. Now on the passenger side here, we have this 1/2-inch steel rod that goes through the square tubing. It's just loose in here, but that rod goes up there, and that keeps the square tubing from moving back. Now there's supposed to be a plate rivet nutted to the back here that will keep the thing from going forward. I accidentally put the rivet nuts on this side, so go ahead and put the rivet nuts on the correct side and have that plate there. It has some washers between the plate because there's a little bit of space, and then just adjust it to your liking. When you're lifting the motor, make sure you got this vertical. Don't, go with the tilt of the motor. Go vertical, that way the transition jack isn't going to want to slide out from under you. On the driver's side, the square tubing has a hole in the top that has it's a metric coarse thread bolt, non-American, and you have to use a 15 chrome 3/8 socket deep in order to put it in. It just barely fits in that hole that I made over here. There's the hole, and that's pretty much it. Also disconnect this piece that goes on the lower fan shroud, just 3 push pins. Free up that shroud. 2 motor mount bolts are 18mm, easy to get to, 1/2-inch drive impact here with an extension and the flex. Make sure you got 2 jacks at the rear of the truck because you're picking up all this motor weight. You don't want the truck to tip over. The studs are at the rear corners. All the rest are bolts. The pan comes off pretty easy. A paper gasket don't hold really hard, but on the front it's got RTV in the corners. The easiest way, use your smallest indexable pry bar, stick it right here on the cast iron part of the block, not the timing cover, and then use your hammer and hit it, and it'll curl itself in there and break it free on both sides. The oil pump pickup tube is held in with 4 bolts. You got your 2 10mm bolts that are in the front that hold the oil pump pickup tube on, and that, of course, the tube has to be removed to get this pan out. And we can't see it, but the 2 bolts are right behind here, and you get that with a normal 1/4-inch flex head snap-on ratchet, 10mm short. And then the other ones, they are 13mm. Now these are very tight. You're going to have to use a 3/8 drive. This worked great. Snap-on flex with a mid-length. They're very hard to get to, but this is how you want to break them loose. The one in the middle is extremely hard to get to. Once you get it broke free with this, then you can use this tool with a 13 flex to get it out. So here's the oil pan gasket. It's a paper gasket, but this thing has 150,000 miles on it, which is leaking out the rear. And look at this, it's just like plastic, it just breaks. There you go, just breaks. It's so brittle. You have to go up all the way with this motor to get this oil pan out. We had the jack maxed out. I had Luke actually pumping it slowly, steadily while I was pulling the pan out. Right now it holds itself, and you have to go up this high. It's almost out of the carriage here, and but it's still got to go up about another 1/8 to 3/16 inch to get the pan out, and that's what Luke would sit there and pump, and it'd go up a little bit, but then the pressure would bring it back down. I think it's because it's being forced against the firewall just a little bit. And the heater hose is now leaking. There's not a bunch of pressure on the heater hose, it was already leaking, but if you see the heater hose is barely leaking, it's definitely going to be leaking after doing this job with the extra pressure on that heater hose. And then, but anyways, once we did get it high enough, it just barely cleared. What it's hitting is this right here, this windage tray. That front of the pan is hitting it, and but you have to bring it, and it barely clears here and comes back, and then it hits these lines. So you push the lines up just a little bit while he's pumping, and then it finally comes out. The oil pump pickup tube does have a gasket here. Make sure to get it. It does come with the Felpro oil pan gasket set, or at least one of them does. So this oil pan was just leaking at the rear. Well, I'm looking at the rear of the oil pan, and it's only the rear of the oil pan. Look at how like wrinkled it is. This is very rough. This, around this bolt hole, was where the main leak was. It was also leaking a little bit around here, and look at that. This is after I've taken the flat disc to it. It is very rough. So definitely gonna have to put RTV on the rear of this pan. I just put the new gasket on the surface of the pan and then put the pan up there. I did not glue the gasket to the pan because you need to pull the gasket back a little bit. You need to get the front of the gasket to get off of the actual sealing surface because the clearance we have is so small. You would rip the gasket if you tried to stick it on. The bottle jack just simply doesn't have enough force to lift up high enough. So anyways, you slide the gasket back, you slide the pan forward, and then now you can work on putting your pickup tube on. Once you get that on, then you can throw your RTV and everything on. Also, while not forgetting to put the RTV on the pan where I showed you how it was wrinkled. Go ahead and clamp the front of the gasket to the pan. That way when you let the back down, you're going to let the back down next, and you're going to apply RTV to the block in the gasket that holds the gasket in place. Then you're going to raise this up with the little jack here, and then that will give you enough clearance to then put the RTV on the front.